I remember stepping into the Walsh family's gathering in Hanover County and feeling the tension settle on me before anyone said a word. A long table stretched across the room filled with people who shared stories as if nothing in the world could trouble them. Pulling out a chair near the far end, I tried to blend in, though a few glances told me something was already off. Emma sat across from me, flipping through renovation estimates with her husband. A debate broke out over the cost of repairing their porch. Voices rose, then dropped when she shifted her attention toward Gregory Walsh. He waved a hand as if none of it mattered, wearing that effortless charm he used whenever an audience hovered close. The conversation drifted until Emma said without any hesitation, "He handles everything on his own. Not like you." Her words came fast, sharp, too loud for a room full of relatives. Forks stopped. Someone cleared a throat. Gregory leaned back and murmured, "She's just saying younger families should take the lead." His tone sounded modest enough, yet the corner of his mouth betrayed him. That tiny lift like he enjoyed every second. I looked at Emma. "What are you trying to say?" She didn't answer. Her gaze fell to her plate as if the comment had slipped out by accident, though the silence that followed told me she meant every part of it. Gregory stepped in again. Thomas let them run their own home. Sometimes stepping aside helps everyone. He smiled at the table, performing for the crowd, acting like he'd been carrying their burdens for years. It hit me then something in Emma had shifted, and I had no idea when it started. A cousin attempted to redirect the discussion, but the tone around the table changed. Soft remarks landed one after another, each hinting at decisions I apparently failed to make, responsibilities I supposedly ignored. None of it blatant enough to accuse directly, yet enough to chip at me. I kept my hands still beneath the table, forcing my voice steady. "If there's something I've missed, you can say it here." No one responded. Eyes drifted away. Emma stayed silent. Another wave of comments circled the table, each dressed as advice. Gregory added, "Families grow stronger when everyone contributes. Some men find that hard." He didn't look at me when he said it. He didn't have to. The urge to defend myself rose, then faded. Anything said in that moment would only feed whatever story Gregory had been building. The man cultivated influence the way others collected hobbies, quietly at first, then all at once. Standing up, I pushed the chair back with enough restraint to avoid making a scene. "I'll step out for a bit," I said. The drive back to Richmond didn't clear anything from my mind. Thoughts kept shifting between Emma's remark and the strange way Gregory handled the room. Once home, the desk in my office looked the same as always. Neat stacks of invoices, binders marked with dates, a few pens scattered near a folder labeled Community Development Grant. That folder held the agreement my company had supported for months, and returning to it felt steadier than replaying that dinner. Flipping through the latest updates, a line item caught my attention. Supplemental sponsorship confirmation. No signature appeared on that page, which should have been mine if I'd ever approved it. Maybe the coordinator forgot to include the final draft, but something about the phrasing didn't match our earlier paperwork. A need to see the project in person pulled me out of the house. Shockoe Bottom held the construction site, a community center meant to serve families in the area. Crews usually worked through large portions of the week, and the place generally stayed busy with contractors, architects, and occasional volunteers. Reaching the lot, the first thing visible was a group gathered near the entrance along with equipment from a local news station. Gregory stood at the center speaking to a reporter. His posture carried authority he hadn't earned. He gestured toward the partially framed building like he'd been guiding every nail and beam. A few workers watched from a distance, confused by the commotion. One of the project managers, a man named Brent, whom I'd known for years, noticed me near the side fence. He walked over, lowering his voice as he approached. "I thought you were the primary sponsor," he said. "That hasn't changed," I replied. Brent glanced at the filming crew. Funny because he just told everyone this whole build was his vision. Gregory's voice rose above the hum of conversation. This facility will reflect my commitment to the community. A plan I've been shaping for years, not one mention of my company, not one acknowledgement of the funds transferred in staggered phases to keep the project afloat. Standing behind the reporters watching him deliver a polished speech, the sting from Emma's words returned with sharper edges. Her admiration for him suddenly made more sense. He had likely recited versions of this story at every family dinner until she believed it. And hearing it repeated now in public layered a fresh insult over the one I'd already endured. A woman in a navy jacket moved through the group with a clipboard pressed against her chest. She approached Brent, first asked a few questions, then headed in my direction. "You must be Thomas Hale," she said. "I'm Lena Ortiz. I handle the audit for this project." Her tone didn't hold suspicion, only clarification. "Did you sign the new sponsorship expansion?" "No," I answered. "There isn't any expansion." "That's helpful," she said, "because someone submitted paperwork stating otherwise, and the signature on it resembles yours." She held out a copy. A blurred scan of my name sat at the bottom. The curve of the H looked right, but the spacing felt wrong. Whoever attempted this knew enough to imitate me, yet not enough to mask their haste. "This didn't come from me," I said. "I didn't think so," Lena replied. "You should review the full packet. If this signature gets processed, the scope of your financial responsibility changes." Brent returned briefly. "You seeing this mess too?" he asked. Lena nodded, trying to figure out who's pushing these forms. His attention drifted back toward the news crew. "He's telling folks he planned Phase 2 already," Brent said. "That shouldn't even be discussed yet." Gregory continued answering questions as if the land belonged to him. He pointed to architectural drawings with such ease it almost felt rehearsed. A reporter asked about partnerships. He mentioned a few local organizations, but never my name. Each omission hit its mark. Lena focused on the documents again. "I'd recommend confirming all of this with your office. If signatures appear without your verification, the liability gets complicated. Complicated how banks assume consent if they recognize a signature pattern. Proving otherwise takes time." Her calm delivery worked better than anything else could have. Not dramatic, not softened, just factual in a way that showed the weight of the situation. Gregory wrapped up his interview and shifted toward the workers, offering unsolicited instructions. His confidence grew with every step he took around the site. Watching him assert control over something he hadn't built twisted the frustration into something heavier. A few crew members turned toward me, likely puzzled why the man who poured funds into their paychecks wasn't the one addressing the cameras. Their expressions didn't hold judgment, only confusion. But confusion repeated enough times becomes doubt, and doubt spreads faster than truth. Lena handed me a set of copies. "These are yours," she said. "Keep them safe. And if anyone else asks you to approve changes, call me first." Her directness carried no flattery, no attempt to soften the reality. It was the kind of professionalism that left no room for misunderstanding. Walking away from the construction site, the sounds of conversation and machinery faded behind me. A corner booth at a small bar in Church Hill gave us enough room to spread the documents without drawing attention. Lena arrived with her laptop tucked under her arm and a stack of printed forms she'd pulled earlier that morning. She didn't waste time. "Look at this line," she said, sliding a page toward me. The sponsor certification carried my name shaped close enough to fool anyone glancing quickly, but the date preceded our original contract by 3 months, and the title under my name read, "Financial Director, something I had never been." "That alone makes it invalid," Lena continued. "Still dangerous. Whoever copied your signature has done this before." The attempt wasn't sloppy. Each curve looked practiced, almost studied. A strange mix of familiarity and fraud. Another sheet followed. "This is the part I need you to see," she said. A routing number appeared next to the phrase Community Support Fund, account holder Emma Walsh. My chest tightened, though not from shock. A suspicion had already started forming after the dinner in Hanover County. Seeing her name printed on an official document confirmed what I didn't want to accept. "Did she authorize this?" Lena asked. "I don't know," I answered. "She might think Gregory's guiding her." "Or she's participating," Lena added carefully. "Not maliciously, maybe. But she signed something." A long pause settled between us as I tried to understand the pattern. Emma had always believed she needed to prove herself. Marriage only deepened that drive. Gregory likely fed whatever insecurity she carried, presenting himself as a mentor. How far had she followed him? "Your name is all over these expansions," Lena said. "If you wait, this becomes harder to reverse. I'm aware," I murmured. She watched me wrestle with the pages, then asked, "Do you want to pursue this? Or step back?" Stepping back sounded tempting. Let them run their story. Let them claim whatever spotlight they wanted. Maybe then the conflict would burn itself out. Before answering my phone, buzzed. A headline flashed across the screen Gregory featured in a regional news article smiling in front of the community center's steel frame. The caption read, "Local Leader Shapes Future," of Shockoe Bottom. Beneath the main image, several donors credited him directly for the initiative. Calls started coming in over the next hour. 2 partner firms wanted clarification about my withdrawal from the project. Another emailed asking if I planned to reassign oversight to Gregory permanently. Their tone didn't accuse me, but the underlying doubt carried weight. Lena leaned back. "He's moving fast," she said. "He's rewriting the timeline," I replied. "And people believe it." Scrolling through the comments under the article only worsened the feeling. The public congratulated Gregory for stepping up. Emma had even posted a short message praising him for his leadership. That word alone cut deeper than anything she'd said at the family dinner. A thought whispered, "Let it go. Let them handle the fallout. Let them have everything they think they earn." "I didn't need this fight." Lena gathered the folders. "Think carefully," she said. "You're not only protecting your reputation, you're protecting your assets. Your signature ties you to legal obligations. Maybe it's time to let them do whatever they want," I muttered. "No point fighting something they've already decided." She frowned. "That's not how this works. You're involved whether you resist or not." A new email alert appeared. The subject line froze me mid-breath request for verification. Mortgage collateral review. The bank had sent a formal inquiry asking me to confirm a pledge of property tied to the Community Support Fund. Opening the attachment felt like peeling back a layer I didn't want to face. The scanned page displayed a single phrase above the line, meant for my signature personal guarantee. Thomas Hale. Beneath it, the forged signature sat flawless, refined beyond the earlier attempts. My thumb lingered over the screen. Lena leaned in. "Is that you?" "No," I said. "But someone wants the bank to believe it is." Her expression sharpened. "This can't wait. You need legal support now." Another vibration signaled a second message from the same bank requesting expedited verification. Their urgency suggested the loan was already in motion. The bar noise faded as my focus narrowed to the letters of my name letters replicated with precision by someone who had dedicated time to studying how I wrote it. The realization wasn't dramatic, more a slow, steady sinking that reached every part of me. Lena gathered her laptop. "We should meet early tomorrow," she said. "I'll bring everything I can trace." I nodded, folding the printouts carefully before placing them in my jacket. When stepping out to the street, the phone buzzed again. Another message from the bank waited. The subject line matched the previous one. My thumb tapped the notification, and the email opened to the same sentence repeated at the top of the attached document, personal guarantee. Signature Thomas Hale. The next morning began in the lobby of the Richmond Bank, where a receptionist directed me toward a glass-walled office. A loan specialist named Howard greeted me with a stack of folders already laid out. He didn't seem surprised to see me, which told me they'd expected this conversation. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Hale," he said, adjusting his glasses. "We need clarification on several documents tied to a loan request submitted last week." He opened the first folder. Emma's name appeared alongside Gregory's. Both had signed a loan application for a substantial amount, one large enough to require a guarantor with solid collateral. My name sat on the final page, replicated neatly in ink I recognized, but hadn't written. Howard tapped the signature line. This appeared to match samples we have on file. Naturally, it triggered an automatic process that placed certain assets under provisional review. Meaning what? Meaning those assets can't be moved, sold, refinanced, or used in any unrelated transaction until the investigation finishes. He kept a professional tone, though the implication landed hard. Part of my property portfolio investments I'd tended carefully for years was effectively frozen because someone decided they could use my name like a tool. "Who submitted these? Your daughter and her father-in-law," he answered. "Both were present. They referenced you as a supporting party. I wasn't even aware this loan existed." Howard nodded. "That's why we contacted you. The numbers are significant, and the system flagged inconsistencies." Turning the pages only raised more questions. The interest rate, the repayment terms, the project justification, all of it hinged on Gregory's narrative that he led a major community initiative. He'd positioned himself as the visionary and me as his financial backstop. A news clip played softly from the television mounted near the teller windows. Gregory's voice drifted through the lobby. "Thanks to my family's support, I've been able to secure the resources needed to carry this project forward." He didn't say my name out loud, but the implication echoed through the bank lobby in a way that made my jaw tighten. Emma stood beside him in the footage, smiling nervously, nodding as he spoke. Howard caught me watching the screen. "This interview has created noise," he said. "Several partners reached out to confirm your role. Some expressed concern about the conflicting information." Before leaving the bank, a representative handed me a copy of the disputed documents. The embossed stamp made everything look legitimate. That made it even worse. Emma answered my call on the third ring. "We need to meet," I said. "About what?" Her voice wavered. "You know what, I'm coming over." She lived a short drive from the bank. Her home looked freshly painted. Renovations Gregory had encouraged had clearly begun. Emma opened the door with a nervous half-smile. "What's going on?" she asked. The folder in my hand felt heavier than it was. "Did you sign this?" She glanced over the pages. "Yes." "Gregory said these were temporary forms, just to get approval moving. He told me it wouldn't affect you long-term. He said you'd be proud to help us." "Did you read any of it?" He explained what mattered. He explained what served him, I corrected. She flinched, looking down. "I thought this was how families work. He said you'd want to make things easier for us." Her words struck deeper than she realized. That blind trust she placed in him, not me, revealed a loyalty shift I hadn't anticipated. Gregory had positioned himself as her reliable guide, shaping her decisions, maybe even shaping her view of me. "Emma, these signatures put my assets at risk," I said. "This isn't a small misunderstanding. It's fraud." "He said it wasn't a big deal," she whispered. "Of course he did. Because he's not the one carrying the risk." She folded her arms, trying to defend him, even as doubt crept across her face. "Maybe you're overthinking this." "Look at the loan amount," I said, pointing to the figure. This could undo years of work. Her shoulders slumped. I didn't know. There wasn't anything left to say that wouldn't widen the divide already forming between us. Her confusion, the guilt flickering in her expression, it all showed how thoroughly Gregory had influenced her. My phone buzzed just as I walked back to my truck. A message from Lena appeared. "We have a bigger issue. A new contract just surfaced in the system. Your signature is identical to the scan used in earlier submissions. This one is flawless. You need to see it." Another attachment followed. Pulling it open, I saw my name printed beneath the title, Primary Financial Guarantor, the signature so precise it copied every stroke and pressure mark. Not an imitation, an exact digital lift. A slow realization settled in. Gregory hadn't scrambled to build this plan. He'd prepared every piece long before involving Emma. The balance of power shifted while I'd been busy keeping the peace. The drive to Arlington felt shorter than it should have. My mind kept circling the same realization there was no accidental confusion anymore. Gregory had moved past suggestion and stepped straight into manufacturing an entire financial persona with my name strapped to it. By the time I reached the law office, the knot in my stomach had settled into something heavier. The receptionist recognized me and led the way to a conference room where Marcus Ellery, the attorney who'd handled a contract dispute for my company years earlier, waited with a laptop open and several binders arranged around him. He didn't bother with small talk. "Thomas," he said, pulling a folder forward, "you need to see what they submitted." He turned the binder so it faced me. The loan application I'd seen earlier looked tame compared to this. Dozens of pages sat stamped, notarized, and digitized with high-resolution scans of my signature. Some signatures appeared on documents I'd never encountered. Some appeared on altered versions of forms I actually did sign years earlier. Some were pasted onto entirely new commitments without any trace of an edit. Marcus tapped a section. "This one is particularly advanced. Whoever forged it didn't just copy your signature, they matched spacing, loop angles, pressure flow. It's nearly indistinguishable from a live version." The pages blurred for a second. Not because of the text, but because I couldn't place when Emma stepped from being manipulated into becoming part of the machinery. Somewhere along the line, she shifted allegiance. Or maybe Gregory eased her into believing she was doing something responsible for their household. Marcus continued flipping. "Your daughter and her father-in-law submitted these as co-applicants. They've represented you as a guarantor with full awareness of the debt." "That's a lie," I said. "Of course it is," he replied. "But unless we intervene immediately, the bank may interpret your silence as consent." A dull pressure formed behind my temples. "So what's the damage right now? A portion of your assets is frozen. Thankfully, the bank flagged inconsistencies early, but the more these forged documents circulate, the harder it becomes to unwind them." He slid over another printed email. "This one's worse," he said. Gregory sent a letter to the Department of Urban Development asking to be recognized as the primary benefactor of the Shockoe Bottom Project. Not a co-sponsor primary. He referenced your generous transfer of authority as the basis for his role. My pulse kicked hard enough to feel in my throat. Marcus watched me closely. "The legal responsibility shifts if he convinces regulators you transferred oversight. That's why I called you in right away." A wave of exhaustion washed through me, not physical, but the kind that comes from realizing the ground beneath your life is moving, and there's nothing familiar to hold on to. The thought that Emma participated even indirectly created a fracture I didn't know how to mend. Marcus kept going. "You can't wait. If you don't challenge the validity of these signatures today, you risk being treated as a complicit party. Banks don't care about family disputes. They care about paperwork that appears valid." The room felt like it shrank around us. Options that should have been simple, call the bank, freeze the accounts report fraud, now carried legal traps of their own. Any wrong move might strengthen Gregory's narrative. Before Marcus could outline the next steps, my phone rang. Gregory's name lit the screen. Marcus nodded. "Answer it. Put it on speaker if you want." I didn't put it on speaker. Couldn't stomach the idea of his voice filling the room. I held the phone to my ear. "Thomas," he said, his tone falsely warm. "I heard you've been asking questions. We don't need all this tension. These are normal expansions. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Stop using my name on paperwork," I said. A sigh drifted through the receiver. "You know Emma counts on us. I assumed you were willing to help her build a stable future. That's what good parents do." That single sentence wrapped guilt and threat into one clean blow. "She doesn't need stability built on fraud," I said. "There's no fraud," he replied, his patience thinning. "There's family cooperation, unless of course you'd prefer to embarrass everyone by dragging this into a dispute." His voice sharpened. "Don't turn this into a war. You'll hurt Emma more than anyone." The call ended before I could answer. Not because I hung up, because he did. Marcus folded his arms. "He's trying to corner you emotionally. Classic tactic when someone's fabricating authority. You can't afford hesitation now." A long breath left my chest. Even the air felt heavy. Marcus gathered the documents, clipped them, and pushed a pen toward me. "We'll file a formal fraud dispute tonight," he said. "But I need your authorization to act on your behalf. Without it, this snowballs by morning." The urge to delay, to walk away, to somehow pretend this wasn't happening, rose for a moment. Then it vanished. Everything Gregory set in motion was expanding at a pace I couldn't ignore. I picked up the pen. Before signing Marcus's authorization form, the phone buzzed again. A text from Lena appeared. "Just found another contract in the system. Your signature looks digitally lifted this time. No distortion. Whoever did this has access to high-level files." My hand tightened around the phone while staring at the message. Marcus waited, patient but firm. The drive back to Richmond happened under a kind of urgency I hadn't felt in years. Marcus's warning echoed the whole way, but another message waited when I stopped for gas just outside the city limits. A construction worker named Dale had left a voicemail. "Someone cleared out the management office. All the original files are gone. Thought you'd want to know." I headed straight to the Shockoe Bottom site. Crews had wrapped for the night, but a truck idled near the entrance, and Dale stepped out when he saw my headlights. "You sure came fast," he said. "I didn't want this getting buried." "What happened?" "A man walked into the admin trailer earlier, said he needed access to finalize sponsor paperwork. He left with a full document bag. Cameras caught him." Dale pulled a tablet from his coat. "Management asked me to send this to you." The footage loaded. The grain wasn't perfect, but the man on screen didn't need high resolution to be identified. Gregory walked straight through the trailer door, with practiced confidence exchanged a few words with someone off-frame, then collected several folders and slid them into a leather case. Dale kept watching alongside me. "See this part?" he said, scrubbing forward. Gregory paused near the doorway, answering a call. A few words reached the microphone. "Emma? Tell her it's handled." "Yes, all of it." A faint ringing spread through my ears. Not anger, not even surprise. More a confirmation that whatever held Emma aligned with him ran deeper than I wished to admit. Dale handed over a thumb drive. "Management said you'd want a copy before anyone else touches this." "Thank you," I said. "You did the right thing." He nodded and stepped away, leaving me with the trailer lights fading behind him. Marcus responded immediately when I sent the video. "This changes leverage. Don't move without telling me." A small victory settled in, not triumphant, just a sense of direction after days of uncertainty. Yet the moment didn't last. My phone vibrated again, this time with a push notification from a local media outlet. The headline read, "Community Leader Issues Open Letter on Project Oversight." Gregory's name appeared in the second line. Opening the article felt like pulling off a bandage. In the letter he claimed I had been under significant stress and stepped back from active decision-making. He wrote that as a family figure, he had taken responsibility to protect Emma's interests during a difficult period. He referred to himself as a stabilizing force. He never accused me outright of instability. He didn't need to. His phrasing did the job without crossing legal lines. The article had already gathered comments questioning my reliability. A partner company forwarded the piece with a one-sentence message. "Please clarify your current role." Another email followed from a sponsor board member. "We need assurance the project remains uncompromised by internal conflict." Whatever ground I thought I'd regained with the surveillance footage eroded quickly. Proof of Gregory's theft lingered on a thumb drive, but public perception shifted in his favor with a few curated sentences. A forged signature was one thing. A fabricated story about my mental state opened a new front I hadn't prepared for. Before starting the truck, another message from Lena appeared. "Call me. Found something you need to read," she answered on the second ring. "I pulled background checks from states Gregory lived in before Virginia," she said. "That man left a trail. What kind of trail?" "Not long. Not dramatic, but familiar. A small fraud case dismissed due to lack of evidence. Accused of using someone else's credentials to open a short-term line of credit. Same method, clean signatures, altered forms, no direct confrontation." The line went steady, while I absorbed her words. "So he's done this before. At least once," she said. "Likely more. People like him don't reinvent themselves each time. They repeat patterns until someone stops them." She sent another file. A scanned police report appeared, redacted but readable enough to show the structure of the accusations. The complaint mirrored the same tactics he used, now shaping a false story, gaining trust, and slipping forged documents under the radar. "Be careful," Lena said. "He's building a narrative around you. Public misdirection is part of his process. I know," I said. "He's already started. I'll keep digging. You handle Marcus, and Thomas, don't let this wear you down. Men like him rely on exhaustion as much as deception." Her call ended, leaving me in the dim glow of the dashboard. The tablet still displayed the paused video of Gregory stepping out of the trailer with the stolen files in hand. His confidence, the casual way he mentioned Emma, the practiced rhythm of his movements, all of it suggested a man running a familiar playbook. Marcus and I reached the bank before opening hours. A security guard let us in after recognizing Marcus from previous filings. The conference room filled quickly with compliance staff, 2 supervisors, and a representative from the fraud division. They expected a complicated briefing. They didn't expect the amount of evidence we carried. Marcus began. "We're presenting material that demonstrates a coordinated misuse of Mr. Hale's identity for financial gain. These documents include forged authorizations, signature scans, and a video recording showing Gregory Walsh removing original project files." He spoke in a measured tone, not to impress them, but to leave no room for interpretation. When my turn came, the words came steadier than I anticipated, structured, direct, stripped of hesitation. "My name appears on forms I never signed," I said. "Some of these signatures were lifted from old contracts without my consent. I'm requesting immediate suspension of all activity tied to these submissions." A supervisor asked for clarification on the video, and Marcus projected the footage from Dale's thumb drive. Gregory walked into the project trailer with the confidence of someone retrieving property he believed belonged to him. The room stayed still as the audio captured him saying Emma's name before leaving with the documents. The supervisor leaned back. "That's enough to trigger a full freeze," she said. "We'll lock every account associated with his applications until we finish an evaluation. You'll get written confirmation shortly." Another representative added, "Any attempt to access these funds will alert our legal department." The relief wasn't dramatic, more like something shifting slightly back into alignment. We left the bank and drove straight to the Department of Urban Development. Marcus handed over the same packets, forged signatures, irregular forms, Gregory's fabricated letter about my emotional strain, and the video timestamps. Once the investigator saw the forged signature overlay, he nodded without debate. "We're suspending his sponsor credentials effective immediately," he said. "He'll be notified today." For the first time in weeks, momentum tilted away from Gregory. He must have sensed it. That afternoon, a message arrived from Emma asking me to come to a family meeting at Gregory's house. The attempt to regain control through emotional pressure was predictable, but still draining. The living room held both families: Emma, her husband, her in-laws, and several relatives who'd clearly been briefed by Gregory. He stood at the center, acting like a man presiding over a negotiation he planned to win. "Thomas," he began. "We're all disappointed. You didn't need to escalate things. Family matters are best handled privately." Marcus stood beside me. "This isn't a family matter," he said. "It's financial misconduct." Gregory ignored him and addressed the room. "Your father has turned against the spirit of cooperation," he told Emma. "He's undermining our progress." Emma looked torn. "Dad, is any of this true?" Marcus opened the folder and laid out the pages on the coffee table printouts of forged signatures, the blank forms with my name pasted onto them, and the still shot of Gregory removing files from the trailer. Emma's eyes moved from one document to the next. Her confusion cracked into something closer to disbelief. "Gregory? What is this?" He grabbed her arm. "Don't look at those. They're twisting things." Marcus stepped forward. "Let her see." Gregory tried to usher her out of the room, but she pulled her hand back. "You told me these were temporary," she said, her voice tightening. "You told me Dad approved the paperwork," the relatives murmured. Their certainty wavered. Gregory's control over the room loosened. He tried again to dominate the narrative, but the evidence on the table left him nowhere to redirect. "I won't stand here and be villainized," he snapped. "Thomas has always been jealous of what I've built," I answered calmly. "You built a story, not a project." His glare hardened, but he didn't deny the documents. He only tried to pivot the room back to sympathy, old tactic, crumbling under the weight of proof. 2 days later, the public briefing for the project resumed. Media crews gathered expecting Gregory to lead yet another polished statement. Instead, Marcus and I stepped onto the platform. A reporter asked, "Where is Mr. Walsh?" I answered, "He won't be speaking today." Holding the original funding agreement in one hand, I presented the documented timeline, each verified transfer, each signed authorization linked to my company, not Gregory. Any claims that placed Mr. Walsh as a principal sponsor were made without my consent, I said. This project exists because of contributions my firm committed months before he became involved. Reporters fired questions. Marcus provided copies of the official filings. Several outlets reviewed the footage of Gregory entering the trailer. The tone shifted fast. Someone near the front asked, "Did he falsify documents?" "That's under investigation," Marcus replied. "But multiple agencies have suspended his privileges pending review." By the time we finished, murmurs spread across the press line. Questions about his integrity replaced the praise he'd cultivated. A commotion at the side of the stage signaled his arrival. Gregory attempted to push through the cluster of reporters insisting he had been misrepresented. They surrounded him with questions he couldn't answer cleanly. "You removed original files, Mr. Walsh. Why did you claim oversight you didn't have? Did you forge Mr. Hale's signature?" His face reddened as he tried to maintain composure. The crowd's attention pressed against him, and whatever authority he held earlier dissipated under scrutiny. Security eventually intervened, guiding him toward an exit, as the crowd closed in with more questions he couldn't outrun. Marcus motioned for me to step back from the podium. I followed him off stage and paused behind a curtain while the noise carried through the room. Reporters still called my name, but their urgency no longer felt threatening. The investigation would continue. More steps waited. Yet for the first time since this began, the story no longer belonged to Gregory. Washington, D.C. greeted me with a stack of forms and a conference room full of federal staff who treated the situation with the seriousness it deserved. Marcus handled most of the procedural language, while an investigator reviewed the forged signatures. When she compared them to my genuine samples, her conclusion came fast. "These aren't yours," she said. "Someone replicated your handwriting digitally and transferred it onto multiple documents. You're not liable." A statement like that should have brought relief. Instead, something heavier settled in. For months, Emma had trusted Gregory's explanations over my silence. That truth didn't fade just because the signatures were proven fake. When the meeting ended, one of the officials shook my hand. "You acted quickly," he said. That made all the difference. On the elevator ride down, Marcus tapped a document against his palm. "You're cleared. They'll close your portion of the review. Walsh, on the other hand, his case is being forwarded to the Federal Fraud Unit." A simple nod was all I managed. Later that afternoon, Emma arrived in D.C. with her own attorney. Not to reconcile, just to handle the portions she had signed without understanding the consequences. We crossed paths briefly in the hallway. She stopped uncertain, as if unsure which version of me she expected to meet. "I didn't know what he was doing," she said. "I believe you," I answered. Her eyes softened a little. "Do you hate me?" "No," I said. "But we need distance, for now." She nodded, maybe accepting it, maybe not. There was no apology. None needed to be forced. Some fractures aren't resolved by words, only by time and whatever decisions follow. Gregory's unraveling moved quickly. Within a week, every financial pathway he used was shut down. The department suspended his role in the project permanently. His credit lines froze. Donors withdrew their commitments. Banks flagged his accounts for suspicious activity and forwarded the results of their inquiry to federal prosecutors. The Walsh family retreated from him publicly to contain their own exposure. His son Emma's husband kept his statements short. His relatives ignored reporters. They didn't defend him, but they didn't condemn him either. They simply stepped aside and let the investigation consume him. Emma faced her own review for the documents she had signed. Her attorney arranged a limited settlement. I paid none of her penalties but made sure she had competent legal help so she wouldn't sink under the weight of Gregory's influence. Protecting her didn't mean standing beside her. It meant refusing to let Gregory drag her down further. There were no grand confrontations, no dramatic reversals. Just a kind of silence that hung between all of us, heavy, unmoving. Back in Richmond, my next steps became practical. I met with an estate planner and created a trust that shielded part of my assets from anyone who might try to manipulate my name again. After signing the final page, the attorney said, "This gives you insulation. No one can use your presence as leverage now." Life didn't return to what it was before. It shifted. Work resumed with its familiar rhythm, but evenings held a bit more space. I enrolled in a weekend hiking course, something I'd thought about for years but always postponed. And I established a scholarship fund for construction students at a trade school near Shockoe Bottom. Small decisions, but ones I made without waiting for anyone's approval. When the Department of Urban Development requested my signature on the last clearance form for the project, I drove to their Richmond office and completed it while the clerk stamped each page. No ceremony, no audience. Stepping out onto the sidewalk, I paused long enough to feel the air move across the street, a simple reminder that the world hadn't stopped during the months everything fell apart. People hurried toward buses, argued over parking spaces, juggled coffee cups and briefcases. Everyday life continued unaffected by the upheaval that had reshaped mine. I turned toward my truck, passing by the corner of the building without looking back at the door I'd just exited. Another meeting waited tomorrow, and the project would move forward with a new oversight board. Gregory's name wouldn't appear anywhere on it. Crossing the intersection, I felt neither triumph nor regret, just enough clarity to keep walking toward the next block, toward whatever came after this chapter, without needing to explain it to anyone.